What's going on, everyone? Moose here, Airguns of Michigan. And today I want to talk about something that I really don't hear a lot of people talk about. And before we get into that, if you guys wouldn't mind, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. It just helps out the channel. And if you would, give this video a thumbs up because, well, who doesn't like to talk about pellet guns, scopes, air guns, whatever you want to call them. Everybody does. It's a great time, and now's a good time to have a great time. And also I just want to apologize. It is cold as heck out here in my shop today. I have my heater running, so it took the nip off, but it's so loud that you guys wouldn't even be able to hear me. But I want to talk about scope height, right? This is something that I've heard my entire life. It is. And honestly, I fell prey to it, and not in a bad way, but I unknowingly followed the sheeple instead of really giving it some analytical thought. Well, I watched a video today, and let me see if I can pull up the name of the video real quick. You know what, I'm not going to be able to, but I'm going to link the two videos that I watched today. And huge shout out to Paramount Tactical for releasing this video because it's what got my bubbles turning. And to MDT as well for proving many of us extremely wrong. So what I want to talk about today is scope ring height and how high you can have your scope above your rifle bore, and if in fact it does or doesn't make a difference. So as you all know, we have scope rings in totally different, you know, heights and everything else. I mean, you could see with this Eagle Vision Infinity mount, that really raises it up, even over these tall rings, and certainly over these short sports match rings. So why all these different heights, right? Isn't it true that your scope should be as close to the bore, you know, as possible? Well, that's what we've all been led to believe, and it's true in a sense. I'm just kidding. It's not true. But I want to show you why these things have always been talked about. Why our grandfathers, why our dads, why our, you know, cousins or uncles or whatever told us that you got to get that scope as close to the bore as possible. It's simply not true. It's really not. And I've always experimented with it, and I didn't think that it was, but I didn't really say anything because I thought, I'm going to make a fool out of myself if I make this statement without any concrete background, you know, or some kind of engineering background where I could say, well, listen, if you take this calculation on this angle of the dangle, but MDT and Paramount Tactical actually really helped me out. I saw this video this morning. I watched actually both of them this morning. Like I said, links will be down below. Definitely check them out. Definitely subscribe to those channels. But let's talk about why we have different height scope mounts. And it's not just because of the bell housing down here. It's not because, well, we got to get a little bit higher so it clears. Well, yes, we do, but that's not why. So let's talk about a couple of different styles of guns. And I'm going to bring up this first gun. This is my Beeman, or my Sheridan, sorry. And you can see that this has really high scope rings on it. Now, for air guns, especially with a top breech, we may need higher mounts than we want because our magazines won't clear or whatnot. But in this case, this setup is actually wrong. And I'm going to show you why. This is a typical rifle-ish style stock. And what happens is when I get on this gun comfortably, my face is way down here. My eyesight's right here. I can't see through that scope. Look, this is where I'm looking, right? I'm looking down my iron sights, right? But I'm not looking through the scope. So in order to shoot this gun, I have to become really uncomfortable and actually hold my head off the gun altogether. So that's a point of contact that I'm missing, right? Now, if this was a bench gun, I'd say, hey, high five, man. This thing's locked into a vise. I really don't want to touch it. I just want to get up there, line it up, boo, pull the trigger. But that's not the case with this. This would make a very uncomfortable hunting gun, for sure. It absolutely would, right? Because here's me, my natural pickup, which is looking down these iron sights, right? Which is why we have this style of stock. But my scope's way up here in the middle of my forehead. So unless I grow a Cyclops eye in the middle of my forehead, then I'm not going to be able to shoot this gun comfortably and as it is intended to be shot, right? So this is a bad example of running high scope rings on a traditional style rifle. So what would be the cure for this? Lower scope rings, right? Lower this thing down, remove this rear sight, lower it down so that as I put my face here, you know, these scope rings right here would be perfect, right? Because that's going to put my eyesight right in line with this lower scope ring. So I went through a lot to swap out all these scopes, just so you guys know. But let's talk about other rifle styles, right? So we have a Benjamin Aquila here, right? So this is a center point scope, right? It's got low rings on it, right? But here's the problem that I run into. This is not a traditional style rifle where my buttstock actually sits much lower, right? And actually, I even took this cover off to get my face on here. But watch, when I lean into this gun, I'm actually looking at the top of this scope. So I can't comfortably see through this scope at all. It looks terrible. It's not comfortable. It's not where I should be. But if I kind of kink my neck around and make it really uncomfortable, I almost have to lay my head sideways. Yeah, I can kind of sort of see, but now my eye relief's all jacked up. Man, it's just really uncomfortable, right? So here's another example of low scope rings, right? Which traditionally is what we're taught to use on a rifle that isn't really going to work. It's not going to work. These do not line up with my eyesight, right? So here is an example of a gun that I've set up recently to go out and shoot. This is the Evanix Cloud and Ultra. And I had these West Hunters around on this Monstrum scope. And we got this thing, or I got this thing set up. And if you look now, when I lay my face down, I'm looking exactly through that scope, like I should be. Exactly. And this is very comfortable. So whether I look up and I look back down, I'm looking right through that scope, exactly where my eye is in the center. The reticle is perfect. It's perfectly aligned. So if I was to run higher scope rings, right, let's say like these here, you know, which is going to raise my scope up even a little bit more. Well, these are pretty close. All right, let's redo that. Let's say if I ran this Eagle Vision mount, right, this is going to raise my scope up more, and it's no longer going to be comfortable for me to sit on my gun. So the lesson really in all this is comfort, right? And this is one thing that I really should have said in the beginning, but I want to talk about it now, is comfort on a gun is the most important part of shooting, right? If you're uncomfortable or having to hold yourself into a position that's not comfortable, muscle fatigue is going to kick in. Your neck's going to start hurting, your back's going to hurt, your arm's going to hurt, and that's not what this is about. This is about having a good time and being proficient at what we're doing. You know, for example, you know, when we shoot NRL or PRS, you know, I don't stand with my gun like this. I mean, I could, but I actually get, you know, where my gun is comfortable on my body, right? I mean, I'm sitting here and this is no different for me doing this than it is just standing here, right? There's no muscle fatigue. I don't feel fatigued out by the way that I'm holding my body or anything else. Well, if we do that and muscle fatigue kicks in, that's when we start to shake, right? So if you're trying to take those nice steady shots, whether you're sitting at a bench or whether you're prone or whether you're offhanding, whatever you're doing, it makes no difference. If you are not in a natural, comfortable position, your body will react. Now, I had somebody tell me, because I was talking about this with a buddy of mine, And he said to me this morning, he said, well, I don't disagree, but I've learned over the years just to deal with it. Okay, well, I suppose if you've put in 40 years of shooting incorrectly and you're happy with the results, then I get it. However, comfort is number one, right? This optic, right, is the end-all, say-all of every gun that you're going to put it on, right? Now, accuracy aside, right? I mean, and when I say accuracy, I mean rifle accuracy aside. Not your accuracy, the rifle's capability and accuracy aside. This is the end-all, say-all of what's going to happen when you're looking through it and pulling that trigger. So, if you're not comfortable on this, and you're shaking because you got muscle fatigue, and you know, and you're up here and you're, I mean, how many of us have been in a position where all of a sudden you start to tremble like I'm doing right now, right? It's hard to make myself do that, but you know, how many of us have been in that position in one form or another? That's not how we want to be, right? In shooting proficiently and accurately, we want to be as comfortable and relaxed as all get up, right? It's all part of the breathing. Just be relaxed. Don't hold it. Don't fight it. It's the same thing, right? With breathing, it's the same thing, right? You hold your breath and everybody goes, and then you're trying to get on target and you're like, and you're trying to let out part of the air. No, man, calm down, relax, breathe. 68 Whiskey actually put out a great video. I don't remember, maybe it was last year, and it was all on breathing technique and trigger pull and things like that. And it was a great video. But you know, if you're not comfortable and your eye doesn't line up in that eye box every single time that you put your face on that gun, and you're struggling to get a view through your optic, and you're struggling to, you know, I don't know, hold your gun level, right? Then you need to reassess the situation. This is why a lot of companies come out with adjustable pieces, right? Adjustable butt stocks, right? So we can adjust the length of pull. Adjustable cheek risers so that we can raise and lower our cheeks. Excuse me. You know, all these different adjustments. Adjustable hamsters for the HFT guys, right? Or whatever. So all these things play into the ergonomics of our body and how we're holding that scope, right? So the reason that we were talking about scope height is, you know, a lot of people say, well, man, if your scope's too high off the bore, then your accuracy is going to be off, and that's not correct. MDT put out a video, the link will be down below, and they actually showed a 22-inch scope riser. And at like over 500 yards, they still shot like 2-inch groups. Right? And it really boils down to, this is why all of us with those ballistic applications, right? Like, thank God I still have my Strelok. Fingers crossed. But that's why Strelok asks you to put in a number. It doesn't ask you to put in a number, and if your number's too great, it says, oh, nope, 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 it won't work, nope. What it does is it takes that number into consideration for the calculations of what your dialing would be. So, if you were running, let's just say, everything equal, you were running a lower scope ring on a scope, and you put it into Strelok, and you plugged in all your ballistic calculations and everything else, everything's in there, and you said, I am 1.25 inches over bore, and Strelok calculates. Well, if you had a 6-inch scope mount, and you put in, I'm 6.25 inches over bore, or center to center, it's going to come back, and all it does is change a calculation. So you may have a difference in, you know, mil radians if you're dialing, right, or MOA clicks, whatever you want to use. You may have a difference in those clicks, but it calculates that into its equation, right? So whether you're, you know, you're zeroed at 50 and at 400 yards, you are, you know, let's say 13 mils up, you know, I'm just throwing out a number, guys, I'm not looking at anything. with these short rings, and then you calculate those 6-inch rings, you may be, I don't know, it may be less actually, because the higher the rings, you can actually have, it's kind of crazy. You'll have to watch the video down below. It'll explain all that. But you may be, I don't know, 12, or let's just use a more realistic number. You might only be 4 over, right? So you might only have to dial 4 mils. These are hypothetical numbers, guys. Please, just understand these are hypothetical numbers. So just like cant, right? Like this ring set here is adjustable for cant. I can add, or I'm sorry, not cant, MOA, right? I can adjust my MOA, right? I can change this. It lifts up, and I can add MOA. It's no different, right? All these things calculate the same, and that's all we're looking to do is change that calculation. So for those of you guys, and I've seen people, I literally have seen people that'll say, I've got to get shorter scope rings because my scope's just sitting way too high. And I'm like, oh, okay. But you look at them shooting and they're very comfortable, right? My FX Impact, for example, right? The way that gun is cut, it almost requires high scope rings. However, let's add another equation to this. Your structure, your stature, right? Some people have smaller heads than others. Some people have, broader cheeks, things like that. So what's comfortable for me, you take my 6-year-old, his face isn't as large as mine by any means, right? He could get away with probably a lower scope ring just because of the way that his body sits on that gun. So when you go into a shop and you're looking to check out scopes and scope rings, try out a few different ones on that actual gun. If there's a good gunsmith there, he's going to advise you, and he should advise you of what's comfortable for you. Not what he thinks, not what he's comfortable with, but what's comfortable for you. And that's the important part, right? So you could have the same gun, 2 different builds. One guy, this is perfect for. The other guy, he has to have that. Because with this, he's holding his head sideways. This is not a natural position, right? I see people like this all the time. This is a natural position, right? My face straight up and down. I'm relaxed. I'm not kinking. Yeah? I mean, this is like a horror movie gone wrong, right? I mean, I'm not the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So, I mean, I hope that all made sense to you because, like I said, I saw this video this morning and I was like, Paramount Tactical, great job talking about this. And his actual video was on gun comfort and how to make sure that, number one, first and foremost, eye relief and comfort on your gun is the number one thing that you need to make sure of right off the rip, right? How many times have you guys seen me take a gun and say, okay, I'm gonna try this for bench, and I go, ergonomically it doesn't fit me? That's just a reality, right? My Day State Red Wolves, for example, I run my cheek risers high, right? Because, well, it's comfortable for me, right? From where my shoulder is here to the side of my face is a distance that requires me to raise my cheek piece so that it's right on my cheekbone, right? This bone should be sitting on top of it or wherever's comfortable. So, there's a lot to take into consideration. So don't follow the flock. Don't follow the herd and go, well, no, Joe said or Bob said or Kevin said or, whoever said you gotta run low scope. No, you don't. No, you don't. You have to run what's comfortable for you. And if you're not running what's comfortable for you, it's going to show in your shooting. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning in with me today. And I look forward to bringing you guys more videos. So until next time, I'm Moose. This is Airguns of Michigan. Be good to each other, and God bless.